Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Let's talk about masculinity. I've talked about this before. Let's talk about tradition. I think I've talked about that before too, but I'm not sure if I've put them both together. There's a tradition of masculinity in our country that seems to be fading. I'm not going to put my judgment on how everyone else should be, what I think you should be like. I have an opinion. I think you should be more masculine. That's just my opinion of you. But I don't know you. What I can say about the fading tradition of masculinity is it's important for those of us who still hold true to those values to not give it up and to be willing, daring to teach it to our kids, to promote it to others around us. Not to spread it or proselytize it or to be like missionaries preaching some sort of way to be, way to live, but just so that a tradition doesn't die. And I'm of the belief that it's important to keep traditions alive. I like tradition. Not all of them. There's some traditions that are stupid. But I think that there's value in celebrating holidays, carrying on certain cultural heritages. I don't know. You know, I have this fascination with old movies. Old movies from like the 1930s, late 1930s to the 50s, early 60s. And that's a long period, 30 years, but right around the mid to late 60s, movies changed because society changed. Masculinity changed. Guys started growing their hair out a little bit longer. Guys became a lot more needy. Like your happiness became somehow like this big deal. Guys were really focused on their own happiness in the old days. Like for example, with the job. My grandfather started a recycling company in Virginia. And he literally started it by driving around on the highway with his partner, Ben Edelman, in their pickup truck, picking up pieces of metal, license plates and fenders and whatever fell off these old piece of shit cars. And you gotta imagine this is right after World War II. So late 1940s. They got themselves a little piece of property so they could start putting that metal on, because it started piling up. They started finding buyers for the metal that they would find. Oh, you need a certain amount of steel. I have 30,000 pounds of steel sitting on the corner of my property. It ended up to be quite the empire. And by the 1980s, when my grandfather finally went out of business, retired, he had made himself like the junk king. Being just a junk man, he did amazingly well. Literally an American dream. And I've asked him before, why did you get into recycling? Is it like, do you like somehow love this shit? Or were you like an eco warrior and it was like some kind of political kind of ideological kind of thing where you wanted to clean up the planet? And he looked at me like I was crazy. Like, it's just a job, man. You know, there's this idea that we teach our kids that, and this is what I was taught, and it's painful, that go find a job that you love. And you do that for the rest of your life. And it's like every day you show up to work and you're just so giddy and you're like, I love my work. I love this place. I don't know if people are like that. I don't know who has a job like that. But that's what we kind of have this fantasy of. And a lot of times it can be painful to go ask any college kid in their second year, and they're all like, I don't know what to do with my life. They're questioning their major and thinking about if they could do something different. And everybody's told, go find a career that's fulfilling. My grandfather and that generation, these guys work their asses off in factories and in farms and whatever job they have. I was talking to a guy at the diner the other day. He's easily my grandfather's age, and he was a police officer for many years. And it's just jobs, and they suffer through their whole lives working a job they don't really give a fuck about. Show up every day and never be late ever in 50, 60 years. Work hard as fuck, your fingers to the fucking bone. Not lazy, not being the laziest guy there, the hardest worker there. This shit's different now, man. It's so different in every way. Men carry themselves differently. I watch these movies, I talk to old people. There's a certain amount of respect that those generations have with each other when they're passing that we might not have. I think I'm a badass, I got a big attitude problem, you are the same way, we're crossing paths, and at the very least, we might flare some nostrils at each other. We're not gonna be like, how are you doing, sir, fellow citizen American, you know, kind of thing. My grandfather's generation were like that. They're kind of like that in these old movies. You watch these Humphrey Bogart movies and even just old Elvis movies. And I watch a lot of old movies when late at night. It's my time to watch TV. I like the way they dress. Now, I don't dress like that. I mean, you see me in my videos. I'm always in a tank top. I live in Florida. It's fucking 100 degrees. But men weren't going around wearing shit like this. This is underwear. I'll go to the store like this. Those guys would not. You look at any of those old movies. In fact, I was talking with an old guy about this, and he was like, you know, not only did we all dress up everywhere we went, even as a kid, you're playing outside in a button-down shirt, you might be wearing a tie. You don't see kids dressed like that. But they would always wear a hat. You know, these old movies, every motherfucker, every man is wearing a hat. And at some point, around the 60s, guys stopped wearing hats, but it used to be every man wore a hat outside, all of them. You see just some friends, they're walking down the street, they look like straight fucking mobsters, like mafia guys with trench coats and fedora hats, and that's just your average guy from the 1930s all the way to the 1960s until everything changed. There was like this formality. I kind of like that shit. I don't subscribe to it. I mean, I guess I probably could and go around dressing like I'm from the 30s, and I just find it interesting how things have changed. Masculinity has changed. We're walking around now in our underwear. They'd be embarrassed. Men back in those days, and older guys look at us, even guys like me, tattoos and tank tops, and they're just like, hey, you're walking around in your underwear. You look like a fucking circus freak, fucking prisoner. And then I find myself looking at these younger generation. They walk around in pajamas. I see them up at the fucking store in pajamas, actual pajamas. You leave the house in pajamas. Things have definitely changed, and we're losing our tradition as men. Becoming soft and weak, becoming feminine, becoming needy and emotional, becoming these overprotected little crybabies. Look how you treat your kids, and they grow up to be full of problems. I was talking with this old guy from the gym the other day. He's 83, phenomenal shape, great inspiration. He's in better shape than me, 83 years old, and lifting more weight. He was working out on the Smith machines with more weight, just his regular reps session, with more than I could do once. 83-year-old man. I like talking to him. He's a good inspiration, this old black guy. And the way he's seen society change, I don't know how he's held his mind together. I don't know how he hasn't just run to the hills and say, fuck you all, you're all crazy. Because that's the way I feel about looking at some of the younger generation nowadays. I think that there's certain just values that are being lost, like living simply, valuing people and relationships more than your car or your Instagram lifestyle. Valuing dinner time with your family more than just what you're eating. It's about sitting there and having that hour every night to bond over a meal. To treat your neighbor like their family. Treat your neighbor's kids like they're your kids. I don't know. It's interesting when I talk to older people. They all went to church. They all salute the flag. And things are different now. And a lot of this, all these things I'm talking about, was inspired by men, and people looked at men as more leaders. And I'm seeing very few leaders. And maybe this is why, because we're losing our tradition. It's just food for thought. Thanks for watching.